Ladies and gentlemen, it's 6:30 and we will now get started. This is not a microphone per se for this room. It's for Facebook over here. So even though you may be seeing the two candidates and myself having this device up to our mouth, it's not for speaking purposes in here, but it's for what's being broadcast on Facebook. I want to welcome you this evening. This is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Bremer, Blackhawk County. Sherry Dargan is the president. Sherry, thank you very much. And all of your leaders, thank you. As most people know, the League of Women Voters is nonpartisan and was established back in 1920, the year that the 19th Amendment came into play, which was giving women the right to vote, and that'll be celebrated in the year 2020. So we thank you. I've already visited with Ray and Jason about our protocol tonight. We're going to go in alphabetical order at the beginning, and then we'll flip back and forth, and then after at the end we come to the closing statements. We'll reverse it. Jason will go first and Ray will go last. And Pat Harper, raise your hand, along with Gene Seelan, raise your hand. If you have any questions that you would like to ask of the candidates, raise your hand so they can see it. They will come to you and get your questions, and then they will be the ones that will decide which questions will be forwarded up here for me to ask of the candidates that are here. Gentlemen, any questions before we go any further? Are we okay? Okay. Yeah, that would be nice if you could. Yeah, good courtesy. Yes, sir. Again, raise your hand, and either Gene Seeland or Pat Harper will come around and pick up questions from you, and then they will then look at the questions and then forward it on up here. And Gene and Pat, do you have pieces of paper for people to fill out? So if you need some paper, they have that as well. Yes, sir. Yeah, my name is Steve Corbin. I'm a professor emeritus of marketing from the University of Northern Iowa. It's a fancy word for being retired, 5 years. And formerly lived in Waterloo, now live in Cedar Falls. The agenda has been given to both candidates, and they know that we'll have 2 minutes for opening statements. And then there are a couple questions that they have already been given ahead of time they'll respond to. And then I have a question for them that they've not seen, and then your questions that they've not seen. And so we will start now with opening statements, and we have moderator up here, Jerry Thornsberry, and 2 minutes. And when there's a 20-second time left, she'll raise the yellow, and when it's time to stop, she'll raise the red, which means stop. So we're ready, and Ray Foyce, you are first up, opening statements for 2 minutes.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I think so I can see everybody in the back. I'll stand up. So thank you, everybody, for being here this evening. I really appreciate it. It gives me a great opportunity. I see a lot of familiar faces, a lot of unknown faces. And, you know, I want to thank Steve for agreeing to be moderator. I want to thank the League of Women Voters as well. Good, okay. As well for putting this on for Mr. Welch and I tonight. I think that's we need to be out there. We've had kind of a short time frame in order to do our campaigning. So this gives everybody a great opportunity to do that. As I said, my name is Ray Foyce. I work with the Iowa State Education Association. I was a classroom teacher for 16 years as in elementary, 4th and 5th grade. I work with educators now here in Waterloo, and I've done that for the past 2.5 years. My wife, Jackie, is a kindergarten teacher. She's been teaching for 17 years. This is my second stint of living in Waterloo, and I've lived here about 9 years total. We made a choice a little over a year ago to buy a new home in Waterloo, and we made that decision that it had to be in Waterloo. It was important to us because we've been watching some amazing things that have been happening in our city. And we've seen growth, we've seen investments, and we've had more guests in our home from out of the Waterloo area who we love to take, to places in Waterloo. We love Waterloo. Unfortunately, lately, there have been so many headlines that have overshadowed all of the positives and the good things that have been going on in our city. Residents and people, as I've been out door knocking, are taking notice, and it's disappointing. I'm running to be a reasonable voice on council. I'm not focused on headlines and controversy, but I want to move Waterloo in a direction that all residents can be proud of. Thank you.
And our next speaker, candidate Jason Welsh. Jason.
Hello, how's everybody doing? This is amazing. I didn't expect anything like this. So many people, so many concerned people showing up for tonight. I am Jason Welch. I'm 43. I'm married. My wife's name is Heather. Her maiden name is Gobalai. We don't have any children of our own, but we do have five kids that we adopted. We have 2 foster kids. So we have 7 kids total. I did not grow up in Waterloo. My parents were missionaries when I was growing up, so I spent the first 5 years of my life living in Africa. When I was 5 years old, we moved back to the States. We lived in Dubuque for a while, lived there, went to high school over there, and then we kind of moved all over Iowa. I attended Faith Baptist Bible College down in Ankeny, Iowa, and also Pensacola Christian College in Florida. I am presently a member of Hagerman Baptist Church. We moved here about 8 years ago. I got a job at the foundry. I worked there for about 2.5 years, and I got laid off. And presently, I have a small maintenance company. We fix up apartments, and we probably roof about a dozen houses or so every year. As far as politically speaking, a lot of people ask me if I'm a Democrat or Republican, or what they want to know what my ethics are and stuff like that. But as far as the city government, the city council, they're primarily concerned with a budget. And as it pertains to a budget, I am fiscally conservative. I think the taxpayers should keep as much of their money as possible. I think government primarily is a problem. They're not a solution. If I get elected, it is my intention on the council to let the taxpayers keep as much money as they possibly can. Thank you.
And we will next go to the 2 questions that both candidates were given ahead of time for them to respond to. And since we're reversing the order every time, Jason, you'll be the first to answer the question, what is the most crucial problem facing Waterloo and how it should be resolved?
Waterloo, we have a lot of issues. I mean, we have crime, we have high taxes. We have problems on the city council for sure, but I think one of our primary problems is just an image problem. I looked it up, and we actually have the same population right now as we did in the 1950s. It's been 70 years since we've seen any growth. We had a little growth spurt, but we've fallen off that. We are not growing as a community. I think and I think this is a culmination of all our problems. So it's a problem with crime, it's a problem with taxes, problem with the city council. And to fix this problem, I think the city's doing what it can with crime. I mean, 80% of our budget goes just for public safety. So they're doing what we can. But a lot of the problems with crime, I think it boils down to individual responsibility. I think it boils down to communities working together to work on this problem. Taxes, the city council, they've got to watch those taxes. We are not going to grow if we continue to take people's money and start spending it. We've got to watch the taxes. And then all the problems with the city council. All the bickering and fighting that's going on in there, all the bad decisions. Right now, we're looking at 5 or 6 different lawsuits. We have the federal government with the issue with the sewers. The federal government has stepped in, and they're going to fine us if we don't fix these problems. I don't think we can continue to do business as usual like we have been. Something has got to change on the city council.
Okay, thank you, Jason. And Ray, I'll repeat that question. What is the most crucial problem facing Waterloo, and how should it be resolved?
Well, we do have our share of problems. I think any city does. I grew up in Lisbon, a town of 1,500, and I can tell you city budget was important in Lisbon as it is in Waterloo. Every town, every city faces budget issues, but we have to make sure we have the right priorities. We have to do those things. We have really great people that work for our city, but too often our inability to work together, our inability to work together is really what is standing in the way. We have too many people that are blaming somebody else for problems that are created by a third party. And we need to get back to where we're working together. When we get to the city hall, the city council sits at the same table, yet they're not even working together. And that's a problem. We have to make sure that our councilors, regardless of what ward or part of town they live in, are really trying to do what's best for every single resident that we have. This is a struggle. There are some really great things, and I think we need to remember that as we go through. What I care about is going to be the whole city, and really, we can focus on the issues, but we also have to focus on the growth opportunities as well. So as we go through, I'm going to be a strong advocate. I've been out, I've knocked thousands of doors, I've talked to hundreds of people. They agree with me. It doesn't matter whatever political persuasion they are. If you have a message of civility, if you have a message that you want to bring businesses, if you want to have job growth, if you want to build for the future, those are the most important things that you can have. Those are the things that our Waterloo citizens and Ward 5 residents want.
Ray, you might as well stay standing since we reverse order every time. And the second question, which both of you have seen ahead of time, it's very simple. Why should we vote for you?
This is, I think, a great question for the end, but we'll put it up here at the beginning, and then we'll talk through some of that stuff. But as I considered pursuing the fifth ward council seat, I began to reach out to people. I'm not a native Waterloo resident, as I said at the beginning, and it was very important to me to get to know my neighbors. My wife and I moved a year ago into a brand new neighborhood. We're blessed to have our neighbors who have lived there for over 45 years. They tell us everything about our house, including that they've never had bats until we moved in. We've had 4 in the last year. My wife is scared of those things, so we got to make sure we have that. From them, I learned that not too long ago, Waterloo had a council that was thoughtful, introspective, and trying to work for all of its citizens. Unfortunately, our council has taken a turn, and I believe that we need moderating voices on council stepping up to help our community realize its potential. My next step in this process to pursue office was to have a conversation with voters. I had issues that I cared about and that I wanted to make sure that my thoughts were in keeping, in line with what they wanted. So I went to neighborhoods. Prior to me announcing, gathering signatures, I had to make sure that I was going to be the right choice and have the right opportunity to be the voice for the Ward 5. It turns out the vast majority of the people that were in agreement. They want someone who is going to be willing and able to be genuinely civil, who has worked with others on consensus building, and we wanted someone who we saw that the public safety was a priority, regardless of the budget. They want to have, our families want to have safe streets. They want to have safe parks. They want to have an opportunity to see their children grow and thrive here. To Ward 5 residents, I've worked hard to earn your votes. If you honor me to serve as your voice, I will proudly represent you. Thank you.
And Jason, same question. Why should we vote for you?
I've been to several of the neighborhood meetings, and people have voiced their frustrations with the city government as it stands. And a lot of their problems are they're trying to contact either their council person or the mayor or somebody, one of the department heads, and they're not getting any responses. There was a lady, she said she's contacted the city 6 times, 6 different emails, and they go unresponsive. As I've been running for council here, I've met a lot of new people. A lot of people have been helping me. And if you talk to those people, they will tell you, if you call me, I will pick up. If they're trying to get a hold of me, I'm available. I've sat down with many of them. I sat down with one person for 2 hours. We just sat and we talked about coffee. We went to coffee and we talked about the issues. I think that's what you're looking for in a representative. You need somebody there who's willing to listen to you and deal with your issues. And secondly, I think I'm an honest person. I went to one of these neighborhood meetings, and the lady asked me, she said, the city council deals with the budget. So how many times have you dealt with the budget? My immediate response was, this year I got elected on the board of deacons for my church. And I told her, I've seen the budget. We've dealt with the budget 11 times. We've had 11 different meetings. I didn't try to mislead her at all. I said, this year, 1 year, I've been on the board of the deacons and we've met 11 times. I gave her an honest, straightforward answer. I could have just left it open-ended. I'm on the board of trustees. She could have assumed it was 5 years, but that would have been misleading. I told her exactly. I gave her the information she needed to know. And a while back, I was running for office. I was interviewed by the Register, and that reporter came away and said I was, I forgot. He said I was refreshingly frank. How many times has a reporter said that about anybody?
And now we will go to questions. And the first one is one that I composed. And since we're reversing order, Jason, you'll go first on this, and then we will go to the questions that have been given to me. Gentlemen, I think it's safe to say that if anyone has ever attended a couple Waterloo City Council meetings over the past few years, or has read several news reports on the actions of the city council's intransigent behavior, that is, some city council members being inflexible, some might call it bullheaded, or others might say refusing to change their views, and whether that assumption is true or whether that assumption is not true, what are your views on compromise?
I'm starting to warm up a little bit, sorry. I don't do this for a living. I mean, I spend most of my days working on roofs and stuff like that, working in apartments. I don't stand up and talk to people, but we're starting to get there. As far as working with other people, I mean, I'm only one person up there. I am not looking to fight with anybody. I am open-minded. I think I'm going to take every issue and just evaluate it on its own merits. I have been working with people, and every one of them says, you are your own person. You do not follow us. You do not have to vote with us. And every issue, I'm just going to look at it independently, and I'm not there to argue with people. I'm a easygoing person.
Thank you, Jason. Ray, you want me to repeat that question? Or you got
Can you just about compromise, right?
Right.
Okay.
Bottom line, what are your views on compromise?
Well, it's clear right now that we have a council that is unable to compromise. My day job is working with the teachers and the support staff of Waterloo, and I was on the negotiations team for Cedar Rapids, which was the second largest school district. So we talked a little bit about budgets. I sat down as we tried to negotiate a salary increase, if at all, for myself as a teacher. We do that now. So as far as budget, we have to do that. We know that the state doesn't fund our public education system enough to be able to do that. So as I'm sitting down with the superintendent, the HR director, the lawyers for Hawkeye Community College, Central Rivers AEA, I have to compromise with them because I want them to still be able to provide services for students while making sure that the teachers and the support staff that are there are compensated appropriately. That's my job every single day. I compromise every single day. If I get a phone call, and this is why I think you should vote for me for council. When I get a phone call, it's not a pleasant phone call. I deal with thousands of educators every day. If they call me, they're not happy. They have an issue that they're dealing with. That's got to be the same as council because I've been to a lot of meetings and I've listened. People aren't happy when they're up at the podium. People aren't happy when they're calling. They're calling to get an answer. That's what I do every single day. I work to get an answer. I work to compromise with the people to make sure that they get an answer. The time frame might be a little tight in certain cases, but they're going to get an answer. I have a rule. If an educator calls me and they have an issue and I can't solve it, I will get back to them in 24 hours. If it's a big issue and I need to contact an attorney, please give me 48. I will get that. Compromise is something I have to do every day.
And now we will go to the questions that were submitted to me, and I'm going in the very same order that they were brought to me. And the very first one, and Ray, you'll be the first one up, is the question reads, do you believe in government and the need for taxation to provide services for the people? Do you believe in government and the need for taxation to provide services for the people?
So this afternoon I went to Station 3 and I had lunch with the firefighters there. And I had a gentleman who just happened to live, I didn't know him, but I hadn't been to his door yet. But he said, first thing he said to me was, do you drive a silver Equinox? And I was like, yes. Okay, I was like, that's weird. And I said, why? And he said, well, I saw you over at my neighbor's house. You know, he's like, I was leaving, I saw you over at my neighbor's house, and I thought that was you. He said, I'm so glad that you came in here. Let's talk. I'm a hardcore conservative. Here are my issues that I have with the city. Here are the issues that I have with our fire department. Please, how can we fix them so we can provide services for everybody? I get it. We have a large budget that is public safety. At the doors, civility, public safety. 1, 2. Those are the most important issues that I've heard consistently. Consistently. We have to make sure that we are allowing our government to do their job by being responsible and allowing the people that are paying taxes to do that. Frankly, we have Station 6 that's closed often. That's not allowing me, when I'm paying taxes, to be provided the equal amount of services that everybody else in the city of Waterloo has. That isn't okay. Why should I pay for a fire department that's on the other side of the city if the fire department at Station 6 isn't open? I think we have to really look at where we're going with this and figure out what we want to do.
Okay. Jason, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe in government. I think God instituted government. He said, "By man's hand, if man sheds man's blood, then by man's hand shall blood be shed." God instituted. I believe in government, but I think it's a necessary evil. If we could all self-regulate, I don't know that there would be much need for it. I think it should be as minimal as possible. We have a Constitution, we have a Bill of Rights. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights is to limit the power of the federal government. We shouldn't be sitting out here, in Iowa, worrying about what the federal government is doing. Their power should be so limited that they can really not affect our lives. And that's the same way, I think, with the city government. We're all paying taxes and we're all reading what's going on in the paper, and I think it's affecting us. I think we're all here because it has affected us. they apparently seem to think they can take our money and spend it on whatever they want to. And I think it's getting a little bit ridiculous. I do believe in government, but I think it is a necessary evil, and we should keep it as small as possible.
You might as well stay standing. You're going to be next. Right?
Yes.
Okay. The next question that was asked by the audience was, should any Waterloo public services be privatized? Should any Waterloo public services be privatized?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I know we're dealing with this with the post office, and in my opinion, I have no idea why it was originally set up that the post office, the mail could only be delivered by federal employees. I don't understand that one a little bit, but as far as the city services, I don't see why anything needs to be privatized at this time.
No, privatization of public services. No, that's my answer. Not at all. As a former public school teacher, I live with a public school teacher. I work with public school teachers. No. I know. Well, you know.
The next question asked by the audience, it's two-part. Do you feel current fire EMS staffing is adequate or inadequate? And then the second part is related to it, but it kind of gives away what the person was intended by asking the question. He or she said, what might be done to rectify the problem? So do you feel current fire EMS staffing is adequate or inadequate? And then what might be done to rectify the problem?
So when I talked at the beginning about why I ran on three things: adequate funding for public services, business success, and civility. Absolutely. I don't think we're funding adequately our fire stations, our fire department. The chief, because of traffic cameras and things that are like that, we've got money that they want to start using to fund more police officers. We are not currently funding enough people. That's what the fire department told me today when I was visiting with the gentleman there, that they weren't receiving enough. They were fortunate today that Station 6 was open. And I know that we talk a lot about response times and those kinds of things, but 30 seconds is 30 seconds in an ideal situation. But when we have fire trucks that are crossing over from one boundary to the next, that isn't an ideal situation. Here's the deal, and I've gotten hammered at the door for this because I will talk about adequate funding for city services. I'm not saying in this budget that I want to fund adequately Station 6. I would at some point in the very near future, all of our fire stations are staffed appropriately. So as I'm paying taxes for Ward 5 and Station 6 to be open, my taxes are going to be equal to everybody else's in terms of services provided.
And Jason, do you want me to repeat the question for you?
No, that's
okay. We got it. Okay.
I don't know if it's a matter of staffing right now. I mean, it's 80% of our budget already, and I don't know how much more we can do. The city portion of our taxes, I believe right now it is higher than any other city. We cannot, our choices are either to cut services other places, or we're going to have to raise our taxes, and I just don't see it happening. I mean, maybe possibly we're understaffed, but right now I don't think there's money to do it.
And as you know, time to remain standing. Next question that's asked, is it possible for a levy rate to be too low? If so, what problems might appear to suggest that more taxes need to be levied? Is it possible for a levy rate to be too low? And if so, what problems might appear to suggest that more taxes need to be levied?
Well, yeah, I guess the levy rate is too low if you're not taking care of the needs of the citizens. Do I think our levy rate is too low at this time? No, absolutely not. I mean, plenty of other cities, in fact, the entire rest of the state is doing with less. And so I don't see why we can't do with a little bit less.
Okay. Thank you. Repeat the
For our
question.
levy rate, is our levy rate too low?
Too low? And if so, what problems might appear to suggest that more taxes need to be levied?
Well, first off, what is driving our high levy rate is our low tax valuation. We need to focus on protecting our existing property, growing that value, and then we can lower our levy by increasing our valuations. We have lots of homes in our city that are unkempt. We'll just put it that way. But by building up our students and building up our people and having better businesses come to Waterloo and invest in Waterloo, we can see more people, we can see the higher tax valuations go up, which then can help lower our levy rate. At a recent neighborhood association meeting that I was at, we talked a little bit about streetlights, and I didn't realize that the city was turning them off because of the cost. I don't know if anybody really knows that. But what you can do in some cases is you can buy a light pole from Mid-American for X amount of dollars a year. I think that right there, if we're not taking care of our citizens, describes exactly this question. You know, we may be underfunding our levy rate if we can't take care of necessary city services. If we can't plow our roads to get kids to school, to get people to their jobs, if we don't have firemen and EMS and police officers taking care of crime, producing public safety, if we have parks where people don't want to go to, then maybe we do have a tax levy that's too low. Oh, sorry. Keep forgetting. Should be like an intermediary between us.
Quick learner. Here we go. Next question, and I'll read it a couple times. What positive things do you see happening for the city of Waterloo in the next 4 years, and how can you help with them? What positive things do you see happening in the city of Waterloo in the next 4 years, and how can you help with them?
So positive things. I think that I'm gonna start with the second question first. How can I help? I think by Ward 5 residents electing me and having somebody who's reasonable and civil in the council, we can move forward. If we're gonna cut things, people aren't gonna wanna come here. If we're not gonna have enough staffing, people aren't gonna wanna come here. We can't see positive growth if we're gonna cut our way there. It just doesn't work that way sometimes. We can maintain. I'm not saying let's jump up taxes. What if we maintain and look at our budget in a different way? I think that's okay too. You need somebody who's going to be informed and look at stuff. What do I envision for Waterloo in 4 years, 5 years, 10 years? I envision big businesses coming in and taking over some of the many empty stores that we have. I see a city council who is encouraging small business growth and the opportunities for people to want to be here. I look at the downtown area as a great opportunity. I was sandbagging July 12th, 2008 in Cedar Rapids, and I watched the devastation that happened because I was teaching there. I lived there at the time, and I taught there, until 2016. I watched the decimation that happened to that downtown area where it was vacant. When we go down there to visit our friends on a Wednesday night, there are thousands of people there. That's what Waterloo should look like. And Waterloo has the opportunity. We have great growth with our apartments that are going down there. We've got some really good outliers of homes that are going to increase the valuation because we've got people working on them. We have great growth opportunities. But if we're going to tell people we're going to cut your taxes, to not provide city services, big businesses already don't want to come here. Small businesses don't feel supported, and they're not going to continue to do that.
I like what's going on with the downtown area. I like these apartments. I like the development. We had some money from the city. It was seed money. We got the development going. But I think the seeds have been sown. I think the city can back off. I would like to see other developers come in. I don't see why the development can't continue. I don't know how big of a part the city needs to play in that development, though. I think in the next 4 years, I'd like to see this development continue. And how can I play a part? Well, we continue. The city can continue a little bit. I mean, but we really need to back off with all these little schemes we're playing with development.
Okay. And the next question is, what are your thoughts on PSOs in dual capacity as firefighter and public service officer? What are your thoughts on PSOs in dual capacity as firefighters and public service officers?
I'm okay with PSOs. I think whoever gets there first needs to have the ability to respond to the situation. I sat down with Trelka, I think it was a couple days ago, and he explained to me that you get in these police cars and there's no more equipment. I mean, there's no more room in the cars. They can't handle the equipment as a firefighter, but I would like them to be trained as much as possible to handle the situation. If they're the first person on the scene, they need to be able to do something there.
Thank you.
PSOs. So I spent a lot of time with our fire EMS guys in the last 3 months, and I've gotten to know their job really, really well. My job as a 4th grade teacher was tough, but I live with a woman who has the toughest job in the world, hands down, teaching 5-year-olds. Nothing compares at all. Me going down and teaching kindergarten students is a disaster. She could probably teach 4th grade. I know she could teach math. I've seen her math high school books. You know, she could do that, but that doesn't mean she's going to be really good and kids are going to learn. And that's important. We have specially trained firefighter EMS. We have specially trained police officers for their job. That's important. If we have adequate funding for our public servants, this doesn't become an issue because nobody has to be worried about their safety. There will be somebody there to protect them, and that's really important. We have to. I don't want, and no offense to high school math teachers or chemistry teachers, there's no way that they're highly trained and specially trained because when they go to school, they take specific classes to teach content area. They're never going to go down to kindergarten because they're not trained to do that. We have specially trained people in Waterloo to do a specific job. I'm going to continue that role. No to PSO. God bless it. I'll get there. I'll get there in the next 20 minutes.
Okay. Next question is, would you support a plan to develop a schedule to use when offering tax rebates to new businesses? That is, largest rebates would go to those companies offering new, good-paying jobs. The lowest rebates would be given to businesses that are simply relocating, vacating from one location to another. Would you like me to repeat that? Would you support?
No, but can I just get a second to process, please? Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Yeah, why don't you read it for them and then I get, thanks, thank you for the processing time.
The question, as given to me, would you support a plan to develop a schedule to use when offering tax rebates to new businesses? That is, largest rebates would go to those companies offering new, good-paying jobs. The lowest rebates would be given to businesses that are simply relocating, vacating from one location to another.
I think it makes, I think it makes sense that if you're going to bring in high paying jobs, that we work with you. And I'm not saying I want to give away the farm in any case, but let's look at that structure. Again, this is one where you have to take time to be informed. Clearly, I'm not as informed as I need to be on this particular subject, so please forgive me for my answer. But on council, then I will take the opportunity to sit and think about this a little bit more and have that. As far as the relocating piece, I understand the frustration when we have a business that is in an area and they vacate that area and they go somewhere else. Sometimes at a place where the city has given them the property at a really reduced rate, very reduced. But what happens though is that they've expanded their business and they're going to continue to have high paying jobs there. And I think that is also very important as well. So we have to kind of balance. And I think, as we're talking about some of these incentives and some of these things, we have to, as a council, maybe step back a little bit and reevaluate this frequently, because maybe we are doing too much of something in one area and not enough in another. Instead of doing it for 4 years or 5 years, let's look at it each year and say, you know what, it's working well now, but are we attracting enough businesses? And if we are, then let's stay the course. If we're not, how do we change in order to get that better? Thank you.
Jason.
Yeah, I think we need to treat people equally. It needs to be an even playing field for everybody. But as far as just relocating, I don't know that I see the value of that. I mean, if somebody relocates and we give them tax benefits, and what happens when the tax benefits run out? Why don't they just keep relocating? People just keep hopping around the city. I don't know. I don't see the benefit really of offering tax incentives if they're just relocating. The tax incentives for new businesses, yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with that.
Next question is, would you support a proposal to require all future development agreements require a percentage to be given to the general fund to pay for basic services? So the question is given to us is, would you support a proposal to require all future development agreements require a percentage to be given to the general fund to pay for basic services?
I think all future development probably should be paying its own bills. I think as far as basic services, are we talking, tax and gas? I mean, for talking gas and electric. Well, yeah, I think they should. Future development should be paying their own bills. I think that answers the question, hopefully.
Well, no, I think I'm going to agree a little bit with Jason. I mean, I guess we have to know what the basic services are going to be. If it's sewer, things like that, then maybe it could be important. I think as part of, but are we putting it in the general budget for that particular project, or is it going into the general budget to fund something else? So I think, as we're looking at it, we have to make sure that if it's going for that particular budget, then maybe this will work. But if it's going just to the general budget for something else or for a different project, then perhaps we need to look at it a little bit more. God bless it.
I'm going to read this as it was presented to me,
Yeah.
and I'll just read it as presented to me. On civility in city government, you say we need to hear the voice of the citizens. The citizens speak at every council meeting and aren't being heard. How will you change that? On civility and city government, you say we need to hear the voice of the citizens. The citizens speak at every council meeting and aren't being heard. How will you change that?
If you've lived in Ward 5, you've seen my mailers, you've checked out my Facebook page, I've talked to you face to face. Civility is my number one priority. Working with people. As far as listening to people, yep, there are people that get up at the council meeting and speak, and I applaud them because it's important to have your voice heard. But you're not the only voice. The thousands of people that I have talked to in Ward 5 are the voices that matter also. Their voices are important too. And the people that talk are not necessarily the people that are right. And that's a big difference. All voices matter. So what my plan is to make sure I hold monthly ward meetings. That's on my flyer, that's on my literature. That's something that I will do. Because I want to make sure it's not just a small group of people that their voice is heard, but it's everybody's. After having been out for the last, I don't remember when we started, 2-3 months now, short period of time, but it felt along. This last weekend when I was out on doors, somebody said, you've already been here. Yep, and I'm going to be here again. You're going to see me as many times as it is necessary, so I know that I'm hearing your voice and your concerns. Because my voice doesn't matter. I'm one. There are over 10,000 residents in Ward 5. They're the voice that matters. They're the voice that needs to be heard. They need somebody that's going to bring that to them so they can be heard, and I will be that person.
These people that get up and speak at the city council meetings, I published my campaign committee a while back, and those people are on my campaign committee. They're some of the most informed, they're the best informed, most concerned citizens out there, and they're all backing me pretty much. I don't know any of them that are not. And on my postcards, the information I'm handing out, my telephone's right there on it. It's on the front and it's on the back. My telephone, I don't have it with me tonight. I purposely left it in the car, but this is probably the first time in probably 4 or 5 years that thing has not been in my hand, in my pocket. I sleep with it 6 inches away from my head, and that ringer is always on. I'm available if you want to talk to me. If you want to sit down, I'm available.
Okay, Jason, as a Waterloo City Councilman, what specifically would you do to avoid another situation like the current one with the 5 Sullivan Brothers Center and the Omaha developer, Mr. Leslie?
Per my understanding of this situation, that man was not fully vetted. I could be wrong on this, but the way I understood it, he sat down with 2 or 3 people at the city. Those people, city, whoever they were, they approved him. They said he had the financing in place. I don't know that the city council ever got to see exactly what he had on hand, and what he was dealing with. And I think we need open communication. We need to be able to see these documents, these outside developers. We need to vet them a lot better than we are.
All right, the convention center. Frankly, I'm not sure what I would have done. I wasn't on the council at the time. I haven't seen the documents, so I can't give you a straight answer right now, honestly. But what I would have done is I would have had a conversation with the other council people. I would have trusted the city employees who were making that decision. I would have listened to the experts, because I'm not an expert on what it takes to get a developer to come in here to buy and to invest millions and millions of dollars in our city. What would help is having a council that the investors and people who want to come can trust. And if investors see that council is fighting every Monday or Tuesday morning in the Courier, why would you want to come here? My friends are asking me from across the state, what's happening in Waterloo every week? Now it could be they're more informed now as I'm running for city council, but really even before then, like, you know, what's happening? We have to make sure that people who want to invest in Waterloo are going to feel trusted. Now, are we going to make all of the right decisions? Have our council made all the right decisions? Am I going to make all of the right decisions? No. But what I am going to do is make an informed decision. And I think that's where we have to lie, that we are making informed decisions. Maybe there was more information that we needed on the Sullivan Brothers Center. I don't know that. I wasn't a part of that decision. But on council, I will make sure that I am informed to make correct decisions, albeit probably will make a mistake every now and then too.
Stay standing.
Hey, I did.
You're a quick learner.
No, I'm not. It's taken 50 minutes.
The question reads, traffic/speed cameras. Do we need more or less or ban them altogether?
I guess it depends on what you're trying to get from them. If you're trying to generate revenue for revenue's sake, then I'm not sure that I think it's a good idea. I think if you're trying to make sure people are more cognizant of their surroundings, I think that's an education piece too. You know, we talk about crime, we talk about making sure we have enough officers. A lot of people speed in Waterloo. And I think that, you know, when we're talking traffic cameras, they're clocking speed, they're clocking red lights. So we have to make sure that we have enough police out on the streets to enforce the laws that we have. Absolutely, we have to be able to do those things. As far as banning them, you know, we've got some things on the docket at the state level that have talked about those, so they can do that. I think at a recent council meeting, we had Chief Chalka talking about using some of that funding to fund an additional officer. I think, you know, maybe, but again, I need to make sure that that's the intent. We have to make sure that we have them for the right reasons, and to figure out if we really do need them or not is going to be very important.
I've had several tickets from these cameras, and I ran a few lights, and they've showed me the videos. And you know what? Every single time I've been in the wrong. I mean, it's live video, and you can see yourself pulling right through. I don't have an issue with the traffic cameras. I don't have an issue with the speed cameras. I don't necessarily like the fact that, you know, it's generating a bunch of revenue. If it does generate a bunch of revenue, I would be interested in, you know, putting it towards taxes and reducing taxes. I do understand that, you know, we just had a conversation Thanksgiving Day about this with my family, and apparently they just turned the cameras back on in Cedar Rapids, and my father-in-law drives through there all the time, and he says it is so much nicer when those cameras are on. People are obeying the laws. The traffic accidents are not happening as they should. I don't have a problem with the speed cameras, essentially.
Had to do some editing on this, and I think I'm getting close to what the intention is. It reads, what is your take on Waterloo? If this is such a good place to work and make a living, but 48% of city workers live outside of Waterloo, what would you do to help this situation? So obviously this person has a problem with that based upon the way that it's written, I think.
And yeah, he or she used the number 48%, and the numbers I have are closer to, I think it's 60% of the police officers. They don't live in Waterloo. They're not paying our taxes. I think it's a pretty big issue here. Maybe I just read the question again. Again, I think it's taxes driving people out of the city, and we have to watch those taxes.
Thank you. And I apologize to whoever wrote this for possibly missing.
So I've lived in Waterloo since the second time now, since about 2010, 2011. I lived in Waterloo 2001 till about 2003, but I didn't live here. Or I didn't work here, sorry. I lived, geez. But I didn't work here. I worked in Cedar Rapids. And I get it, it's tough. That was my place of employment. I know we have city workers who don't necessarily work here. My wife is a teacher in Cedar Falls. But I guess you live where you want to live. I know there are rules regarding our police and fire about I believe it's 10 miles from City Hall. Not even the fire station they work at, but City Hall, which really limits sometimes where people are at. And it's important. I think if you want to have people work here, they want to have the opportunity to be here. They want to make sure that we have things that they want to do here. And maybe we don't have enough things that they want to do here, which is why they don't live here. I don't think it's about taxes. It's probably a reason. I mean, I know when we were looking at houses, it caused us to look at different areas of town. But I think when we think about where people live, sometimes it's less about, you can find a home that you love and you fall in love with, and that's where you want to be. That's where you want your kids to grow. And that's important. We don't want to mandate where somebody is living because of where they work. That doesn't work. It doesn't. We have to make sure that we have enough opportunities. And perhaps if we grow our opportunities, then those people will want to live here. That might be the issue.
Next question is, as budgets tighten, cities are forced to consider all ways to cover increasing costs. Would you consider appealing to or even demanding that churches in your ward and across the city pay something, if not a more fair share, for city services they rely on?
I guess if we're talking about large businesses moving from, and expanding and moving from one place to another and demanding that they have to pay for services and asking that they pay for services, churches have toilets that they flush into our sewer system. They have water that's brought to them from our wastewater treatment plant. We have all of those services. I think if we're talking about fair share for businesses, we should be talking about fair share for all. And I think that's important. So if you're using a city service and you want it for a business, then why not for a church?
Yeah, I think churches should pay their fair share, but I don't see how they're not. I mean, they're paying their water bills, they're paying for their sewer services. I'm sure they're already paying their fair share.
Stay standing. We've been able to get to 13 questions, and unfortunately, due to time, because the League of Women Voters promised we'd be done at 7:30, there were 10 other questions we were not able to get to. And I was given the infamous note. The moderators eventually will see, and thank you, Jerry. We need to end. It was advertised as ending at 7:30. Sorry. So we will now go to what was on the agenda as the last item, the closing statement. And as we agreed beginning, Jason, you'll go first. 2 minutes for your closing statement. And in advance, thank you for being a candidate for office. So few people do it. And I tip my hat to anyone who steps up to the plate, goes after the office. Best wishes in your election.
Thank you. Much appreciated. This is the smallest ward, and it's a special election. I don't know how many people are actually going to show up to the polls, but this is going to be an important election. As I read the lay of the land, we have two different sides here. We have adequate funding, which I'm interpreting as I think our taxes are going to have to go up if we were going to adequately fund a lot of these projects. I think that means more intrusion of government into our lives. I think we're talking bigger government. Like I said when I started, I think government is a necessary evil, and I am not here to take your money. I'm not here to increase your taxes. I just want to let you alone, let you live your lives, and I guess that's my closing statement.
Thank you. Same token, I thank you for running for public office. Brave and the bold do it, and best wishes in your election.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I don't see us as two sides. I see us as people who want and have different visions for Waterloo. I've never once said that I want to raise taxes. I've never once said I want to lower taxes. I want adequate funding for our city services. I want people to come to Waterloo, and if they come to Waterloo and we fill up all of our hundreds and thousands of empty homes, we can see change. We have to make sure that businesses want to come to Waterloo. We have to have a council that isn't going to fight, that isn't going to be a distraction at all. Those are very important things. I'm running to make a positive change in Waterloo, and that starts with running a positive campaign. We obviously have some differences about that. Unfortunately, I've been running a campaign for several weeks now. And frankly, it's easy to attack me because I've put myself out there, and I appreciate, what Steve said. It is tough. I've had to examine my life and my wife's life and our life together. And I think any candidate always does that to make sure you've led the best life. And I'm not a perfect person. But what bothers me is we have a candidate who has talked about being out there, who's talked about that. But where? How? You look at what his platform is, it's non-existent, except on a little piece of paper. You can go to my website and see what I stand for. You might not agree with it, but it's there. And it's because I've been out talking to hundreds and thousands of people. I have a team of people. I have a campaign committee just like he does. This last weekend, we hit over 900 doors of Ward 5 residents. It is important to elect somebody who's been out there and transparent, and I want your vote, please. Thank you.
Okay. In addition to thanking Sherry Dargan, Jerry Thornsberry, Pat Harper, Gene Seelan, I want to thank all of you for showing up this evening and for submitting your questions. And gentlemen, best wishes to you. Don't forget, Tuesday, December 11, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. Tuesday, December 11.